right, here we are. Welcome, people. Another episode of a podcast coming to you. Excuse me. You know, season 5, I've had local, but surprisingly enough, I've had 2 Australian artists come in, and now I have a third coming in. I have delivery here with me today, and I have Rebecca Allen and I have James Lynch, who are the founding members, who have been working together for a while or being together for a while, and are now have just put out their latest January 17th. And I'm going to say in French because it's a French word, but Force Majeure. I'm in Quebec, so I speak French. So I love the title. Absolutely stunning album. I've just been like obsessed with listening to it. And I kind of mentioned this before I hopped on that, garage punk, rockin', like it makes me nervous sometimes, but your album is really soothing to me in this funny, interesting kind of way. So thanks to James and Rebecca for jumping on here with me today. Thank you.
Oh, our pleasure. Thanks for having us. It's cool to hear you pronounce force majeure. It's always interesting. How everyone's going to say it. But.
That's it. Well, here in Canada, Quebec, the second largest province, is majority French. Our old colonialists were from France, so our major language here is French. So, I mean, Force Majeure, it's right up my alley. So thank you for making a French title too. I mean, it gets so little attention in our language at times, but
it's that we've had, well, obviously Force Majeure being this album, and the previous album there's a song called Beta-Meinhof, which is German, and both times we've gone on tour and gone to those countries and they're like, you're pronouncing it wrong.
Well, I make an effort to pronounce right. And I think to start off, guys, I kind of like to kind of dive back into your history a little bit about how things started to spark for you guys. And James, I'm going to throw this question at you first. What were some of your key moments when you were growing up where music really started to kind of sing to you, and you knew that music was somehow going to be a part of what you did when you grew up?
Yeah. I guess I was always quite drawn to music. But I'm not really sure why. I think like when I was quite young, we had a piano at home. And I was like 6 or 7 asking my parents to give me piano lessons for some reason, because once I started them, I didn't really practice or stick to it. But yeah, by the time I was like, I don't know, a little bit older and getting into kind of rock bands, I guess I sort of found what I was looking for. And got like, there were a bunch of bands that were really big for me as I grew up. And a few of them were like Australian, like rock bands from the kind of early 2000s. And there's a band, The Vines, who maybe people are familiar with, who were a really big deal to me as I grew up. And I mean, like at the same time, I'm a 10-year-old listening to Green Day and listening to whatever else had come across kind of my ears. But yeah, probably at a certain age, I became really obsessed and would spend my Saturday trying to learn how to record my guitar onto the computer, which wouldn't work or whatever it was. So yeah, there were probably a bunch of really key moments. Yeah, the band The Vines I really was obsessed with, and then getting a bit older, I kind of got really obsessed with kind of like there was like the Tame Impala had started, and there was this like Perth and Melbourne psych and garage scenes that were kind of like happening, where I think I was really obsessed with the community side of it more than in exactly the bands themselves. Like the idea that all of these bands could be friends and play each other's bands and stuff. So yeah, I was really drawn to, I guess music in the first place, and then the community side of things. And then when I ended up being able to find my own community and do the same thing and play in a bunch of different bands with different friends, I guess that was a big moment for me.
Like amped up. Yeah, totally. Rebecca, what about you? Where did music start to come to the forefront of your realizations of, hey, I need this?
Yeah, I think a little bit different for me. I always really liked music from when I was young, like always was like listening to records or downloading or getting my brother to download music from my MP3 or making birds or whatever. But
the LimeWire days, right? LimeWire and Napster days.
Totally. And yeah, I think like when I was younger, I got piano lessons, but I didn't really like it because I guess they just taught you like really simple versions of like Beethoven or something, and you're like, when you're 12 years old or something, it's like, this sucks.
Lame.
So I was like, I'm not doing that anymore. So I didn't really play music, but I always liked it. And I guess you like go see bands and maybe you see like a big band and then a band supports them and then you get into that band and then you go see them and someone else supports them and you get into that band. And it kind of wasn't until like a few layers deeper when I was like in my early 20s and I was going to see like bands at smaller DIY venues and stuff that I was like, cool. People are like making music who aren't necessarily like, I guess like punk music, who aren't like, you know, not saying that they're not incredible musicians, but are like formally trained like musicians. Yeah. And when I met James, he was playing in bands, but I couldn't play music. And then you start meeting everyone in the community and all this stuff. And me and my friends were like, maybe we should teach ourselves how to play some music and get involved in this. And I think once we started, it was kind of just like eyes wide open. Let's go.
Right.
This is fun.
Yes. What style, Rebecca, when you first started to kind of look at music as you being involved in it, what was your go-to kind of like songs that you were writing or playing together?
Yeah, pretty much like punk songs. Yeah. So my first band, Gutter Girls, was like punk band, I would say, or maybe like a little bit post-punky, maybe. Probably punk. And then I was playing in like a kind of like more hardcore punk band as well. And then I guess Delivery kind of like Blonde Revolt was a bit punk as well.
Right.
Punk.
Right. So I mean your orientations both were you were kind of in the same lane a little bit. And from what I've been reading and we had mentioned before we hopped on here that you guys are in a relationship as well for 8+ years or whatever it might be. How long into the relationship did you guys decide, why don't we team up? Like you like what I do, I like what you do. We're kind of in that same lane. Let's see if there's a possibility of a fusion.
Yeah.
Kind of embarrassingly long. Like
it's pretty funny. Yeah, I don't know, because James brought me a bass when I said, for my birthday, when I said that I wanted to start playing music. So it was always like really encouraging and helped me out heaps and everything. But I guess like we were kind of like I was finding my path in a way that was like separate from exactly like where he like I wasn't like, oh, now can I play in your band? I was like, I can make band with my girlfriend. We're going to do that. And then, so I guess maybe also I was more just finding my feet a little bit at the start. So it didn't seem natural to be like, oh, let's create music together, because that's not really how
I think
my side was working. But
I think like by the time Beck started playing in bands, I had been kind of in bands for 8 years or something by then, which not that exactly matters, but I always feel like at the start, although like we were both, I think, really supportive of each other, we maybe didn't do each other as contemporaries. Like we were kind of both doing kind of vastly different things.
Yeah.
And then only maybe 3 years into the relationship, when COVID happened, we were like at home when you couldn't go out and nothing to do. And somehow the idea of should we try and make some songs together happen.
And I guess I was probably feeling like more confident in like my skills and abilities and stuff. Not that you can't make music when you're at different skill levels, but I guess it kind of feels more natural to be like, should we like not necessarily jam or something, but maybe we could have a crack at merging our vibes together.
Yeah. And I think as well, my musical background prior to that, I think as well, was like the main band I sort of played in from when I was like 15 till when I was 25, which was around the time where COVID happened. It was like it was like a garage rock band, but it was also kind of pop leaning, and I was sort of like the main songwriter and like would think a lot about melodies and harmonies and stuff like that, which wasn't really Beck's world. But by the end of like probably 2019 or right before COVID happened, I was sort of finally, like for the first time in my life, really was getting into like playing in bands where it was more loose and like, I don't know. I probably had 8 years of learning music where I was like, the way you write a song is I have to labor over this thing for 100 hours and then I present it to my bandmates and tell them exactly what to play. Whereas yeah, by the end, I think I'd kind of found like the enjoyment out of it being a whole lot looser. So I think it probably, yeah, you were probably feeling more confident. I was probably feeling a bit like get over yourself a bit. Like it doesn't have to be like this, I don't know, thing.
Like letting it be more loose and letting it find its way.
Yeah,
instead
exactly.
of And did you guys during COVID, did you co-write songs together, or would you, like, how does your songwriting processes go? Each of you, like, do they intermingle at times, or do you kind of keep them very separate from one another until you have a complete kind of idea before you introduce it to one another?
It kind of changes a little bit depending on the song, but yeah, like I think before Delivery started, like I was obviously in bands with my friends, but I'd never like written a song or lyrics or sang before. So James definitely like held my hand at the start a bit, helping me figure out like how to fully get there with like some of the stuff. But now, like, I think when we started, like I would maybe have a riff or something, then James would help me figure out how to like piece together like riff, break, bridge, whatever, chorus.
The formula, the songwriting formula. Yeah,
and
totally.
then I would write the lyrics or sing, and me and Lisa would work together a bit on writing lyrics because it's like scary sometimes. But then, yeah, now I feel like kind of in like the latest, like I guess I've kind of switched a bit, and a lot of the time, like I'll just kind of think of like lyrics in my head or a line or something and have like a vibe and kind of record a little bit of like bass or keys and vocals and then kind of like take it to James or the band to help me flesh it out. But James is, and we definitely work together a lot of the time with like fleshing songs out, but I guess you kind of have like the main ball of the idea before you get there, but you're kind of sometimes a little bit more like
yeah. James, what's your process like for writing a song? How do you do it?
I think as well, to like tie back to that earlier question, I think like it is fairly collaborative, but maybe the most collaborative sense of it is that we're kind of quite good at being each other's sounding boards, or if that's the way of saying it. Like one person will probably throw their ideas out at the other person, and the other person might not be like, cool, well, here's a riff that I can match with that. It's more like, that one's the keeper. Yeah. Like, play that one a bunch more times and then go use that to go to some other part or whatever. And so, yeah, definitely my songs, at least at the very start of Delivery, well, I don't know, like, it kind of changes all the time, but I think there would be lots of us sitting together and, like, Beck on bass and me on guitar and just sort of, like, playing riffs and all, like, ideas at each other. And then it's like, that one's cool. And then it's like, all right, well, I'm going to take that idea and like work on it a bit more myself. Or yeah, it's like, oh, that bass line's good. And Beck's like, all right, well, I'm going to go and write a bunch of lyrics over the top of this thing. But yeah, it always changes. I don't know. I would love to have more of a process. I think that everyone in our band would like to have more of a process because sometimes, I mean, I feel like a lot of maybe songwriters feel like this, where it's like, making a song is kind of hard and annoying, and then you finish it and you're like, oh, I've got a song now, and then you're like trying to do the next song and you're like, I wish it was easy as the one I just did. That I've got, like,
or you write a song that you like and you're like, oh no, am I ever gonna be able to write another song again?
Totally. And does everybody collab, like does everybody bring in songs of the members of Delivery, or is it mainly you two that bring in the ideas, or is it like you said, James, like totally collaborative, like everybody brings in their ideas and then you kind of like bounce them off each other and you're like, okay, let's keep that part and we'll add that to this, or we'll add this on, or how does that collaborative work amongst all the members?
It's always been, well, yeah, since Beck and I started the project, we definitely wanted it to be a band and not like a duo project or
Right.
the two of us being like the leaders and the other three like our backing band or something.
Mm.
But the collaboration sort of happened in different kind of ways. And a lot of I think the way I've talked about it before in other interviews is that like, I think it's collaborative in the sense that it's like, there's kind of a very active anything goes attitude in this band, which means someone can bring in a fully finished song and it's fair game, or someone can bring in an idea and it's fair game, and anyone has license to like come and be like, I want to be the lead singer on this song, or I want this to happen, or whatever it is. And so on the latest record, out of the five of us, there's four different vocalists across the 12 tracks, and yeah, some songs that were definitely hashed out in the rehearsal room, and some songs that were like had been fully brought in as a demo, and we were like, there's nothing that needs changing. So yeah, it's a funny one to describe because it is collaborative in that sense, but equally it's like we're not always going into the writing room or something, and
Right.
if everyone put in their 2 cents.
Right. It reminds me too, there was a comment that somebody mentioned that there's these ebbs and flows with the songs, but it sounds like that too with the songwriting. Like it's very seems organic almost, like an idea will come in and then it's workshopped, like there's this collaboration that goes on.
Yeah. And yeah, I think there's also like, at least on the last couple of albums, there's kind of been a like, all right, we've got X amount of songs kind of that have shaped up, and then it's like, all right, we want to fill in a few gaps. Does anyone have a song that feels like they might lean this way or lean this way? And or then it's also like, well, at least on the first album, we had, I don't know, maybe we had 11 songs and Sam hadn't written one yet. And we were like, well, Sam, you have to write it. Stop messing
Pick
around.
it up, man. Pick it up.
Yeah. And like he'd only recently joined the band at that stage, and I think he may be still finding it, like figuring out like his role in the band, particularly because I think he took someone else's role, and I think he was like, oh, I'm maybe being someone else. And we were like, no, you're in the band now.
Yeah.
Hurry up and write your song. Yeah, you've got to do a song.
Yeah. You got to write your song. I love that. Well, too, it also, like, it does sound like a collaborative effort on your latest, because you'll have a song like Digging Holes, which is very like garage, punky, but then the New Alphabet, like, again, it turns into more of a Pavement-y kind of, indie rock. Like, so there are like kind of genre hopping, but as a whole, like as a complete listen through, and it's the kind of record you have to listen through from start to finish. I can't listen to one song. I'm like, okay, I'm waiting for the next song to arrive. Was that conscious when you guys were assembling the songs, that you wanted them to kind of have a flow to them throughout the whole record?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is sort of accidental, or not accidental, but like we sort of just let it kind of take shape. Because yeah, I definitely think when we started writing the album, we didn't really know what we were getting into. And it's funny that you mentioned those two songs, because those two songs, Digging the Hole and New Alphabet, are two of my songs. And I reckon they were both fairly fleshed out by the time the band.
Yeah, they didn't have much practice room.
Right.
Yeah, there was a lot. There was a lot of like playing it to try and like figure out if it worked, but it wasn't like. It was kind of like I brought in a million ideas, and I was like, I think there's a song in here, and we just had to like whittle it down a little more. But yeah, it's always been. I think we're a band that has a lot of different music in our like collective DNA, and I don't think there's much desire to make a completely punk album from start to finish that's like no holds barred and like just like brutal, because there's kind of other things we always keen to explore, and like and yeah, like it's fun doing kind of like more mid-tempo things, or like kind of quirkier moves that like, I don't know, you sort of need those ebbs and flows, or you need to kind of let up the pace a bit to like make the moments hit better, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Because sometimes you need a bit of a relief, right, Rebecca? Like because it is so intense at some points. Like you get to such a crescendo that you kind of need like that little breather of like, all right, let's do this again, but give me a break, give me a minute. What do you?
And I like that. It makes it like sometimes listening to albums can be a bit of a slog. If it's all like really similar, you're like, is it still going? So it's nice to have something where you're kind of like keeping alert during the process of being like, oh, I didn't expect a song like this after that song or something. So I like it because it makes it
totally
more fun and interesting
to
play even.
Once the record was ordered too, like Beck and I sort of had kind of picked our track listing and we thought it would be workshopped a bit more, but then suddenly it was like it got approved and like sent to the master or whatever. And then after it, like, because we didn't think, like, I don't know, we had thought about it a fair bit, but like no one had really given feedback or reflected on it. And then like I finally was like listening back to the mastered version or whatever, and I was like, oh my God, we really like front load, like the first like 6 songs are just like bang, 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 bang. And then fortunately it lets up and there's a gap on the second half where it's like,
I think that's why New Alphabet sticks out to me, because it gives me that kind of like, you have that clean guitar at the start and it just kind of like, you know, eases a little bit you back into.
Thank God.
No, but I mean, like, I totally love it. I mean, you got 3 guitars, you got 4 vocalists. I mean, it has to be, it's going to be powerful. I mean, it just with the setup of the instrumentation, the vocals that you have, my question kind of, James, is like, I know that you produced this, you recorded this as well. How do you manage the guitars and the vocals? Like, I know that the vocals, there's usually somebody that sings and then there's others that will add in, but the guitars are always like, when do you know to have 3 guitars all playing the same chords? And when do you, okay, why don't you try this line that fits on top of what we're strumming? Like, how do you manage that so that you're not overwhelming and also adding new kind of elements to a song? Like, how do you navigate that?
Yeah, it's one I thought a lot about on this album because, I mean, I love being in a band with 3 guitars, and I guess we started being in a band with 3 guitars more in a live context than a recording context, because the first songs that Beck and I were making in our bedroom in COVID, I think on those recordings we weren't like, we need all of these layers. We just made the song, but then it was like having a band with 3 guitars was really, really fun. But then the first record we made, we kind of tried to record it as live as possible, which meant that every song had the 3 of us playing, and depending on how it was arranged, it'd be like, all right, for this section, we all play the exact same riff. It's just times 3. And then we get to the next part and maybe we're all doing separate things. And that's a kind of a cool thing too, because it like, I guess like the balance of the mix or whatever you call it, like keeps changing. Like because like if there's a guitar like in your left ear or whatever, and then suddenly that's the guitar solo, you've got to figure out how to make that like be the highlight, even though it's being like tucked away for the last bit.
Right.
And then so coming to doing this next album, which we didn't record, we recorded like the beds of it live, but we sort of took our time doing the guitar layering, and I spent a lot of time trying to figure out like, all right, like what do we need here? Do we need 3 guitars, or do we need just one guitar to play this part and then the other guitars join in, or there's lots of double tracking, so it's like there'll be 2 guitars playing the exact same thing on either side of the mix, and then the next guitar pops up in the middle for the guitar solo or however it goes. And yeah, I spent ages thinking about this stuff. And at one point we had like a, not a spreadsheet, but like there was a whiteboard in like the garage where we were recording, and it's got like the like layering of how the guitar is going.
Like a mind map of
yeah.
what are we gonna do then?
Maybe no one else in the band knew what I was talking about. They were like, whatever, just do what you got to do. Yeah.
Cool.
But it was a cool experience because it means that there's songs on the album, or there's songs we play live even, like Digging the Hole's a good example, that when the verse is going, all 3 of us are playing the same bar chords and it's like rocking.
Right.
But if you do that on the recording, there's nowhere to lift to when you get to the chorus. So then on the recording, like we pull off those guitars and it's just one, or like a double track guitar in the middle holding it down, and then the other stuff pumps in and suddenly everything lifts. So it was cool to think about like how I don't know how layering and stacking things could work. And when it comes to the live set, it's like, well, let's just make everyone play the same thing and make it loud. So,
Right. Is that Rebecca? I wanted to ask, like, if somebody attends a delivery show, what can they expect? Like, so, like I mentioned, 3 guitars, 4 vocals. I mean, like, how does a participant in a delivery show, you think, what will they leave feeling or thinking?
It's usually pretty loud. But it's fun. I think like we have a lot of fun on stage playing together and have a lot of energy. And I think when you're in the crowd, you can kind of feel that feeds into the crowd too. So I think it's a really fun band to be in, that a lot of the time you finish a set and you kind of like go out into the crowd or talk to people and they've kind of had just as much fun as you've had on the stage.
That's cool.
So it's all pretty high energy and good vibes.
Absolutely.
Beck's pretty customary to a rock move or two.
Yeah, I think everyone in the band is
you gotta have that in your repertoire for sure.
And someone does a move and the next person tries to jump a little higher or something, and then
amazing.
But we don't take ourselves too seriously, but yeah, we definitely have a good time.
Well, I mean, from the live parts that I've seen on YouTube, I mean, it looks like such a fun show. I'm sure there are no tables. Everybody's up, moving. Like, it just looks like what you would think of a fun, awesome show that you got to go to. Delivery, go there. They will deliver. So it's been like January 17th. This record came out, Force Majeure. How have you guys felt the reaction has been since the release?
Yeah, it's been awesome. I mean, I guess we've both put out lots of releases in all different ways along our musical journeys. So it's cool, really cool. Been really cool working with a label like Heavenly. They're so great. And yeah, I guess also like just instantly going on tour after releasing it. That's probably like the first time we've released an album and then just gone away. And it was like a very fun way to have the album out because you're just on the road playing it and meeting people and talking to people and stuff, whereas I guess sometimes you could probably get caught up sitting at home
Googling
right
Majeure review.
Totally. And it gives you a good kind of like gauge too as to like, are people singing the songs? Like, has the album started to proliferate amongst the population, right? Like you can see that firsthand at these shows.
Yeah, which has been kind of awesome. It's like like for someone who plays in a band and like people liking what we do.
Yeah, I mean,
it's good having that instant gratification.
Even like a funny one is that like I guess you like do this stuff and you don't really think about it being bigger than, I don't know, a 5-kilometer radius around your house or something. But like when we were in America recently, we didn't have any records for sale for a long story. But it's like someone came up and got us to sign their record, and like
where did you get that?
Yeah, like why did you get the record? And then like, no, I bought it like from a store. I bought it, and it's like, oh yeah, I forget that like the world exists now, and like you can. So it's cool. Yeah, there's people around the world that have actually bought the album or listened to it. Which, yeah, I think growing, like, from our background of playing bands, like, you might be you might fully expect that you make an album and it's just for the circle of friends or if 10 people outside of that heard it, that would be special. So, it's exciting that people around the world are hearing it.
Yes, like artists have mentioned, I've mentioned this before on the cast, that they feel like things are starting to move forward when it's more than their friends that appear at the show and play the records. It's like, I don't know you guys. Where did you, like you start to feel like the wheels starting to turn a little bit quicker, which is amazing.
It's cool, yeah. And then, I mean, hopefully all of those people end up becoming your friends. So just
There you go. There you go. So thanks guys so much for this. I've really enjoyed talking with the two of you. I've really loving the new record, and the old stuff is, I mean, equally. I think that you have this growth that's happening. You know, it's just you're amping up every release, which I totally love.
cool.
Oh.
What can we anticipate for 2025, like tour wise? And are you guys dabbling in new tunes? Is there maybe a record, anything that you can share with us that's not a secret or anything, obviously? But what can we expect from delivery from 2020 in 2025?
Well, we are working on new music. So TBDCA, whatever the one is, on what will happen with that. But it's fun. I guess it's kind of motivating once you put something out to be like, all right, what's next?
Yeah.
The band, since making the last record, has changed a bit. So it's kind of been exciting. We're sort of going in with a fresh, I don't know, it's like we're kind of not back to square one, but like it's a good chance to kind of reimagine what we've been doing, because we've got new songwriters in the band.
Which is exciting.
Yeah.
We're just about to go on Australian tour. And then we're over in the UK and Europe again. And we're working on getting back to the States and Canada. So
yeah, that's
TBC DNA.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, I mean, the touring just shows how many people want to see you guys, which is, I mean, a great barometer for how people are accepting the record and getting into it. I wish you guys all the best in this summer in 2025, and I'm loving this record, but I'm so happy that I'm hearing that you guys are continually writing. I think the best is yet to come. And I really would love to have you guys come and do a show in Canada at some point, if you can get here. I mean, we're Commonwealth, right? So we're kind of like related somehow.
Our manager, we saw our manager last night, and he was talking about some kind of arrangement he wants to set up between Australia, Canada, Mexico, Denmark, and somewhere else. He had some Mexico. He had some acronym that he wants to present to. Yeah.
I'm in. Sure. Maybe just skip the US. Just all the Commonwealth tour.
Yeah. But no, I mean, we'd love to come to Canada and hang out and play. I appreciate you having us on, Chris. I appreciate you listening to the record attentively, and yeah,
it's been a real pleasure. It's been I love doing these deep dives, and your story is one that is quite unique. And it's been really fascinating talking with you guys. I love hearing how it all began. And then the records and the songs that you guys have done collaboratively. I'm sorry I geeked out too a little bit on the recording process, but I love kind of getting a little bit into the weeds on that. Like, particularly when you're a DIY and you're doing it yourself, you're kind of wearing these two hats. So James, I appreciate your words on those processes that you go through.
Cool. It's cool to, I mean, it's something you think so much about. It's cool to be forced to articulate.
There you go. Well, thanks so much, guys. Have a great summer. Keep doing what you're doing, and people check out the latest record. They're going to be on tour. Force Majeure delivery. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, Chris.